Welcome, dear listeners, to our scary stories. I'm your host, leading you down the dark and twisted corridors of the human mind. In each episode, we delve deep into the world of the eerie and uncanny. Tonight, we will be treading the boundary that separates reality from the surreal landscape of nightmares. So settle in, turn off the lights, and let the silhouettes of your imagination come to life. Listen carefully, for every creak in the house, every gust of wind you hear is a part of the story. Prepare yourself for a journey into the dreamscape, a chilling expedition that explores the darkest corners of the subconscious. In the heart of Haven Hospital, shielded by the rhythmic hum of life support systems and the dull echo of distant voices, there existed a realm apart from reality which was Dr. Valerie Mason's clandestine laboratory. Valerie, with a shimmer in her emerald eyes, flicked a switch. A low, vibrating hum filled the room, breathed life into the mechanical behemoth standing before her. Her invention, the nexus of years of tireless labor and unwavering resolve, was finally complete. The Dreamweaver, a conduit to the uncharted universe of dreams. A symphony of lights danced across the room as the Dreamweaver came alive, casting eerie shadows on the sterilized white tiles. Tubes and wires, like the tendrils of a sci-fi beast, extended from its central body, pulsating with energy, stirring with potential. The intoxicating smell of burning incense wafted through the room, meant to soothe the mind before the plunge into subconscious depths. "The Dreamweaver is ready," Valerie whispered, her voice echoing the anxious thrill reverberating through her veins. Her assistant, Lydia, an ever-practical woman with worry lines that defied her young age, glanced at the machine apprehensively. "Are you sure about this, Dr. Mason? We've never tested it on a human before." Lydia's voice was filled with trepidation. Her knuckles whitened as she gripped her clipboard tighter. Valerie looked back at her, her gaze unwavering. "Lydia, we've come too far to turn back now. The children need us. If we can understand their fears, their dreams, we can help them heal." As the two women discussed the risks and rewards, the skeptic chief of medicine, Dr. James Rutherford, an elderly man bearing the weight of countless medical battles, entered the room. He viewed the pulsating machine, eyes narrowed and voice low, grumbled, "Valerie, I hope you know what you're doing." The room buzzed with tension, the pungent scent of antiseptic mingling with the aroma of new technology. The dull, omnipresent hum of the Dreamweaver seemed to mirror their quickening heartbeats, the sharp intake of breath as Valerie, bravely, resolutely, walked towards the Dreamweaver. With her hand trembling just slightly, she placed it on the machine, feeling the cool, thrumming power of the invention beneath her fingertips. "I know exactly what I'm doing, James," Valerie assured, a small smile playing on her lips. "We are about to change the course of psychiatry forever." Her words echoed in the room, intertwining with the mechanical hum, leaving a charged silence in their wake. Everyone held their breath, the smell of incense and electricity heavy in the air, as they were about to embark on a journey into the uncharted depths of dreams and fears. This was just the beginning. The world, the children they served, would never be the same again. The Dreamweaver had come alive, and with it, the line between reality and dream was about to blur, leading them into an adventure like none other. Valerie's heart pounded like a wild drum as she settled into the Dreamweaver's core. The machine embraced her with a cushioned chair that seemed as if it were sculpted for her, and a helmet that resembled a silvered crown, embellished with countless wires and blinking lights. It was a strange throne for a surreal kingdom. Lydia checked the monitors meticulously, her fingers dancing across the control panel, adjusting parameters, taking readings. She glanced at Valerie, offering a nod of approval. "All systems are steady, Dr. Mason. We're ready when you are." With a deep breath that tasted of the lingering incense, an underlying metallic tang of technology, Valerie nodded, ready for her inaugural journey into the mind of a dreamer. "Let's dive," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the thrum of the Dreamweaver. As the helmet descended, the world around Valerie dimmed. A hum of the machine became a distant echo, the scent of incense faded, and the sterilized environment of her lab was replaced by the welcoming arms of darkness. She felt a slight lurch, like the ground disappearing beneath her, and then, as though breaking through the surface of a still pond, she found herself standing in a dreamscape. She was no longer in the lab. Around her was an ever-changing landscape of vibrant colors and whimsical shapes. She was in the dream of her first patient, a young boy named Simon who suffered from a paralyzing fear of abandonment. Houses hung in the sky like helium balloons. Trees whispered tales of the wind in languages long forgotten. A river of stars flowed with luminescent grace nearby. It was beautiful and bewildering, but under the fantastical exterior, there was an undercurrent of melancholy and fear. Simon appeared before her, a small, sandy-haired boy clutching a worn-out teddy bear. His blue eyes held an ocean of fear. His lips trembled as he spoke. "Who are you?" His voice was small, drowned in the vast strangeness of the dreamscape. "I'm Dr. Mason, Simon. I'm here to help," Valerie replied gently, her voice echoing oddly in the dreamscape. Every sound seemed amplified, the rustling leaves sounding like pages of a colossal book being turned, the river's flow resonating like a celestial melody. Simon regarded her warily, but did not flee. Valerie took that as a sign of progress, a small victory in a battle that had just begun. As she navigated the dream, offering Simon reassurances, the world shifted and transformed around them, reflecting Simon's moods and fears. This was just the first dive, a stepping stone to the grand endeavor she had taken upon herself. With every word of comfort she offered Simon, with every fear they addressed together, Valerie knew they were one step closer to breaking down his walls of fear. By the time she woke from the dream, drenched in sweat and gasping for breath, she was also smiling. Despite the overwhelming strangeness, she was exhilarated. Little did she know that this journey, this labyrinth of dreams, was just the beginning. Waiting in the wings was a silent child in her haunted dreamscape, an ominous figure lurking in the shadows. But for now, Dr. Valerie Mason basked in the afterglow of her first successful dive, oblivious to the storm on the horizon. The real adventure was about to begin. A few weeks after her triumphant first dive, Dr. Mason was presented with a new challenge, a comatose child named Lucy. Lucy's parents, their faces etched with despair and exhaustion, brought her in on a day when the sky was steel gray, and the smell of impending rain wafted through the hospital corridors. They carried with them an air of lingering hope, a flicker in the encroaching darkness of their daughter's silent world. Lucy was a wisp of a girl, her small frame swallowed by the hospital bed, dwarfed amidst the sea of white linen and medical paraphernalia. A web of wires and tubes tethered her to reality, while her consciousness floated in an inaccessible realm. Despite the steady rhythm of the life support system, Lucy seemed eerily disconnected from the world around her, like a ship adrift in the vast ocean of unconsciousness. "Please, Dr. Mason," her mother pleaded, her hands wringing the fabric of her dress, her voice trembling. "We have tried everything. You're our last hope." Valerie looked at the girl, so young, yet bearing a burden no child should carry. There was a profound silence around Lucy, a vacuum that absorbed the ambient noise of the hospital, the muffled conversations, the shuffle of feet, even the ticking clock on the wall. It was as if Lucy had pulled the silence around her like a cocoon, making the world outside recede to an indistinct murmur. "I will do my best," Valerie promised, laying her hand on Lucy's, feeling the icy chill of the girl's skin. Her heart clenched at the sight of the silent child, but Valerie knew she needed to remain strong, for Lucy, for her parents, and for the journey she was about to embark upon. Back in her lab, she gazed at the Dreamweaver. Its lights blinked rhythmically, its hum a constant soundtrack to her thoughts. She was about to voyage into uncharted waters, into a realm she could hardly fathom. If Simon's dreams were any indication, Lucy's subconscious would be a labyrinth of hidden fears and suppressed memories. This was her mission now. She would navigate Lucy's dreams, confront the fears that kept the girl trapped, and hopefully guide her back to consciousness. The scent of incense filled the room, mixing with the sterile odor of the hospital, creating a strange, comforting fusion. Valerie felt a shiver of anticipation. She knew she was on the precipice of something extraordinary, something terrifying. As she prepped for the dive, she couldn't shake off a feeling of trepidation. Yet, she knew she must venture forth. In the silence of the lab, in the echoes of the Dreamweaver's hum, Valerie prepared to step into the dream world of the silent child. Little did she know that what awaited her in Lucy's dreams would change her life, and perhaps the world, forever. As the helmet descended, a curtain of darkness veiled the world around Valerie. She breathed deeply, inhaling the incense-infused air one last time before surrendering herself to the Dreamweaver. The gentle hum of the machine grew fainter, and she felt the familiar sensation of being detached from reality. Then, breaking through a veil of obscurity, she found herself standing in the heart of Lucy's dreamscape. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. A stark contrast to Simon's colorful world, Lucy's dreamscape was draped in an oppressive gray. The sky, heavy with brooding clouds, reflected the desolation beneath it. A chilling wind howled through the barren landscape, carrying with it the stench of decay and echoes of forgotten laughter. The ground was strewn with broken toys and wilted flowers, silent testaments to a joy that once was. In the heart of this desolation stood Lucy. Unlike the lifeless figure on the hospital bed, the Lucy of the dream world was vibrant. Her red hair flowed in the wind, and her blue eyes flickered with life, albeit shrouded in fear. She was alone in her haunting world, a solitary figure amidst the despair. Valerie approached Lucy, her footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. The air tasted of salt and sorrow, tugging at the strings of her heart. "Lucy," she called, her voice a ripple in the ocean of silence. Lucy turned, her eyes widening as she spotted Valerie. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling like a lone leaf in the wind. "Are you here to take me away?" The fear in her voice was tangible, a raw wound in the midst of this desolation. Valerie shook her head, offering a reassuring smile. "No, Lucy, I'm here to help you. I'm Dr. Mason." The dreamscape began to shift as they talked. The wind intensified, carrying in it the distant echoes of a lullaby, distorted and dissonant. The sky darkened further, the clouds churning restlessly. Valerie felt a shiver of unease, but she held her ground. She had to be brave, for Lucy, for herself. As Valerie delved deeper into Lucy's haunted dreamscape, a dark figure loomed in the shadows, its presence an icy dread that seeped into the very air. Unbeknownst to Valerie, she was not alone with Lucy in the dream world. A malevolent entity lurked, unseen, unheard, yet its presence was like a crack in a mirror, distorting the reflection, poisoning the dreamscape with fear. This was Lucy's world, a haunting dreamscape that held a chilling secret, a silent scream echoing in the wind. As Valerie braced herself to face this unknown fear, the reality of her quest was becoming clear. She was not just in a dream, she was in a nightmare. And the true horror was just beginning. Every moment in Lucy's dreamscape felt like wading through a winter-chilled lake, the cold seeping into Valerie's bones. The weight of desolation pressed heavily upon her, but she pushed forward, her determination a beacon in the oppressive gloom. Lucy led her through the landscape, her small hand gripping Valerie's. The dreamscape changed as they moved. Broken buildings loomed, their shattered windows like vacant eyes, hollow and haunting. A playground emerged from the fog, the swings swaying ominously in the wind, their creaking a mournful dirge in the silence. Then it appeared, a shadow detached from the surrounding darkness, a figure cloaked in an impenetrable blackness. It was formless yet oppressive, an embodiment of the fear that had consumed Lucy's dreams. Lucy whimpered, her hand tightening around Valerie's. The entity hovered, its presence a malignant tumor in the dreamscape. A chill ran down Valerie's spine, a sensation of being watched, of being hunted. It didn't move, didn't speak, yet its intent was as clear as the fear in Lucy's eyes. It was a predator, and they were in its territory. Valerie stepped in front of Lucy protectively, her heart pounding against her ribs like a panicked bird. She felt a scream clawing up her throat, a primal reaction to the nameless terror before her. But she swallowed it down, refusing to show her fear. "I won't let you hurt her," she declared, her voice a defiant challenge against the ominous silence. The entity shifted, a darkness swirling against darkness. An eerie calm descended, a calm before a storm. The dreamscape echoed with an unseen threat, and the malignant presence seemed to seep into every stone, every gust of wind, every whisper of the broken world. Lucy trembled behind Valerie. She was the innocent victim in this terrifying game, a pawn ensnared by a monstrous king. Valerie knew then, with a jarring clarity, that their journey was far from over. This entity, this embodiment of fear, was the key to Lucy's comatose state. As they faced the shadowy menace together, Valerie felt a new resolve solidify within her. She was no longer just a psychiatrist, a pioneer of the dream world. She was a protector, a warrior against the shadows. And she would not let this entity claim Lucy. The entity lurked, its silence a chilling threat, a promise of the horror to come. And while Valerie was terrified, she was also determined. She had entered the nightmare, and she would not back down until Lucy was free. The battle lines had been drawn, the roles decided. And so, the true struggle began. Navigating the world of dreams was like traversing shifting sands. Landscapes dissolved and reformed. Time ebbed and flowed like a capricious tide. The rules of reality held no dominion here, making the journey both fascinating and treacherous. Lucy's nightmare was a labyrinth, a twisted maze of fear and sorrow, its heart guarded by the malignant entity. As Valerie followed Lucy deeper, the darkness seemed to grow thicker, choking out any remnants of light. The echo of their footsteps was swallowed by the cavernous gloom, leaving an oppressive silence in their wake. A twisted forest materialized, its gnarled trees reaching skyward like skeletal hands. The air was heavy with a metallic tang, like the aftermath of a lightning storm. A full moon, its light muted and sickly, barely illuminated the path that snaked into the heart of the forest. Lucy's hand tightened in Valerie's. "This is where it started," she whispered, her voice a mere rustle against the stillness. "The shadow. It was first seen here." The words hung in the air like a death knell, lending the forest an even more sinister aura. Every shadow seemed to pulse with menace, and Valerie couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She had to be strategic, had to tread carefully within the confines of this twisted labyrinth. She started forming a plan, drawing on her experience as a psychiatrist. It was not just a physical entity they were dealing with. It was a manifestation of deep-seated fear, possibly trauma. To banish it, she would need to understand its origin, its ties to Lucy. The forest path led them to a clearing where an ancient, scarred oak stood. A treehouse nestled in its branches, a child's haven turned into a symbol of forgotten happiness. Lucy paused, her gaze locked onto the treehouse. "That's where I used to hide from my nightmares," Lucy confessed, her voice choked with fear. Valerie could sense the profound terror tied to this place, a fear so deep it had manifested the dreadful entity. She squeezed Lucy's hand reassuringly. "We're going to face this together, Lucy. Remember, it's your dream. You have power here." Valerie's words seemed to echo into the forest, as if seeking the entity lurking in the shadows. An icy gust of wind swept through the clearing, the trees groaning under the strain. The entity was close, its presence a chill against the back of their necks. Valerie stood resolute, her gaze fixed on the treehouse. Their battle was about to begin, and she was ready to confront the shadows. As they moved towards the treehouse, the entity lurked, its silence a scream in the quiet night. Their footsteps echoed a chilling melody, a crescendo in the symphony of fear. The labyrinth of shadows had led them here, to the heart of the nightmare. And now, the real fight was about to begin. The treehouse stood before them like a silent sentinel, its wooden slats aged by countless dreams and nightmares. Each step towards it felt like wading through molasses, the air thick with anticipation. Lucy's fear was a living entity coiling around them, as they climbed the rope ladder into the heart of her childhood refuge. Inside, the treehouse was deceptively mundane. Childhood drawings adorned the walls, their colors faded with time. A well-loved teddy bear sat forgotten in a corner, its once bright eyes now dull. However, the innocuous setting couldn't mask the terror that soaked into the very wood. Valerie could feel the echoes of Lucy's dread, and with it, the lurking presence of the entity. With a breath of cold wind, the entity appeared, its form a swirling darkness that consumed the frail light within the treehouse. Lucy recoiled, her eyes reflecting the raw terror she had been living with. Valerie held her ground. "Lucy," she said, her voice steady despite the quickening of her pulse, "remember, you are stronger than your fear. You have control here." Lucy looked up at her, her blue eyes wide. "But how can I fight a nightmare?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We confront it," Valerie replied, turning her gaze to the entity. "We face the fear, and we understand it." To the entity, she said, "You are Lucy's fear. Tell us why you are here. Why have you consumed her dreams?" The entity remained silent, its dark form pulsating, but then a voice, guttural and as cold as ice, resonated within the treehouse. "I am here because she remembers, even when she tries to forget." A chill ran down Valerie's spine as the implication dawned on her. This entity was not just born of fear, but also of a repressed memory, a traumatic event that Lucy had buried deep within her mind. She turned to Lucy, understanding in her eyes. "Lucy, you need to remember. You need to face what happened. Only then can we banish this nightmare." As they stood in the treehouse, the entity watching, Valerie felt the weight of their task. It was more than just a psychiatrist entering her patient's dreams. It was a journey into the darkest corners of a child's mind, a battle against an invisible enemy. But they were ready to face it, to confront the lurking terror, and bring light back into Lucy's dreams. The confrontation was just the beginning. The real battle lay ahead. The silence that followed Valerie's words was as thick as fog, filling the treehouse with its weight. The entity's darkness seemed to seep into every crevice, waiting, watching. Fear lingered in the air like a specter, but Valerie held onto the small glimmer of resolve. She locked her gaze on Lucy, urging the girl to find the strength within her. With trembling lips, Lucy began to speak. Her words painted a picture, one of a peaceful family life that was shattered one fateful night. The story unraveled of a fire that had consumed their home, the intense heat, the choking smoke. The terror of that night had been encapsulated in the form of the entity, a traumatic memory that had locked itself deep within Lucy's subconscious. As Lucy recounted the tale, the treehouse shifted around them. Walls of wood morphed into walls of flames. The heat was a phantom sensation, a memory brought to life. The entity pulsed in rhythm with the recollection, its darkness undulating, growing. It was a mirror to the horror of that night, a dark reflection of the young girl's fear. Valerie maintained her composure, grounding Lucy as the memory played out. "You survived, Lucy. You are stronger than this," she encouraged. "Don't let it consume you." "But I couldn't save them," Lucy's voice broke, the weight of her guilt laid bare. "I couldn't save my parents." Understanding dawned on Valerie. The entity wasn't just born of fear, it was also a manifestation of Lucy's survivor's guilt. A shadow born of her feelings of helplessness and the sorrow of her loss. "The fire wasn't your fault, Lucy, and your parents would never blame you for surviving," Valerie said, her voice soft but insistent. "You have to forgive yourself." As the last word echoed in the burning treehouse, the entity reacted. It recoiled, the shadows churning violently. Lucy's declaration was a blow, an assault on the guilt that fed it. The nightmarish dream began to tremble, as if an earthquake had hit the dream world. The walls of flame flickered, threatening to extinguish. The battle was far from over, but Lucy had struck the first decisive blow. In the midst of chaos, there was a beacon of hope, a path leading them out of the abyss. And Valerie knew it was a path they would tread together, their resolve a shield against the darkness. The entity writhed and shrunk under the power of Lucy's newfound resolve, a phantom pained by its own existence. A deep, guttural howl echoed throughout the treehouse as the walls of flames began to waver, the heat dissipating. The onslaught of reality, of truth and acceptance, was causing the nightmare to fragment, to lose its terrifying form. Lucy's breaths came in heaving gasps, each one a testament to the raw courage it took to face her darkest fears. Yet in her eyes shone an undying determination. "This ends here," she stated, her voice resounding with a newfound strength. "You have no power over me anymore." The darkness shivered at her words, its form flickering and wavering like an ill-tuned television signal. A sense of panic permeated the air, a predator turned prey. Valerie's heart pounded in her chest as she watched Lucy face down the entity, the embodiment of her trauma. This was a critical moment, the precipice of change. "Lucy," Valerie urged, "now's the time. Forgive yourself. Let go of your guilt. Let go of the past." As if guided by an unseen force, Lucy stepped forward, reaching out towards the entity. The shadows recoiled, yet there was a sense of inevitability to her approach, an acceptance of the end. "I forgive myself," she said, her voice resonating within the treehouse. The entity let out a final, unearthly wail as it was bathed in an ethereal light. The oppressive shadows disintegrated, replaced by a comforting, soothing luminescence. Lucy's traumatic past, her guilt, her fear, was finally vanquishing, leaving behind a sense of tranquility that filled the room. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. The treehouse, once a symbol of Lucy's nightmares, now stood as a testament to her triumph. The scent of fear was replaced by the comforting smell of aged wood and a hint of spring blossoms. The air felt lighter, the oppressive dread lifted. Valerie watched in awe as the haunting echo of the entity's presence dissipated completely. Lucy stood tall, her face radiant with a sense of peace that had long been absent. This was the healing they had been striving for. A sense of relief washed over Valerie. They were on the brink of victory. They had confronted the nightmare, and they had prevailed. But one more challenge remained, escaping the dream world. In the aftermath of the entity's dissolution, a sense of serenity enveloped the treehouse. The whisper of the cool breeze rustled through the leaves outside, the silence of the night punctuated by the distant hoot of an owl. Valerie turned to Lucy, her heart filled with a sense of accomplishment. "Lucy, you did incredibly well. But we're not done just yet. Now we need to wake up." Lucy nodded, her countenance serene yet determined. "How do we do that?" she asked. "We need to break the dream." Think of this as a lucid dream. You've taken control of your nightmare. Now you must bring yourself to consciousness. Guiding Lucy, Valerie instructed her to visualize her hospital room, the smell of antiseptics, the soft hum of the life-monitoring machines, the muted colors of the hospital walls, everything she associated with reality. As Lucy focused, the treehouse began to flicker, an echo of their shared intention. As the surroundings morphed around them, they held onto each other's hand tightly. The treehouse receded, being replaced by the sterile environment of a hospital room. The transformation was gradual but inexorable, a shared dream transitioning to shared reality. As they broke through the dream, a sensation of weightlessness filled them, as if they were floating upwards through layers of consciousness. It was an oddly gentle transition, a serene drift from the realm of dreams to the wakeful world. Their eyes flickered open almost simultaneously in the stark, white hospital room. The rhythmic beeping of the life-monitoring machines greeted them, a symphony of life that sounded incredibly sweet to Valerie's ears. They were back, safe, awake. Valerie let out a sigh of relief, feeling the cool, tangible reality of the hospital room around her. She looked at Lucy, who was blinking up at the ceiling, a sense of awe on her face. "We did it, Lucy," Valerie whispered, her voice brimming with pride. "We made it back." Lucy turned her head to look at Valerie, her blue eyes shining brighter than ever before. "Thank you, Dr. Valerie," she said, her voice strong and clear, the ghost of her past finally exorcised. As Valerie basked in the joy of their victory, she knew this was a breakthrough, not just for Lucy, but for the realm of psychiatry as well. They had ventured into the dreamscape, faced the darkness, and emerged triumphant. It was a journey that spoke of courage, resilience, and healing. But for now, the satisfaction of seeing Lucy free from her nightmares was enough. A smile curved her lips as she watched Lucy close her eyes, not in fear, but in relief. For the first time in a long time, the young girl would sleep without the dread of nightmares. It was the dawn of a new day, a testament to their shared victory over the haunting abyss of fear. That concludes tonight's chilling tale on Our Scary Stories. We've traveled through the dream world, confronted dark entities, and emerged from the abyss of fear. Remember, listeners, our minds hold mysteries more profound than any we may encounter in the physical world. Every dream, every nightmare is a story waiting to be unveiled. Until next time, may your dreams be free of shadows and your reality full of light. Sleep tight, dear listeners. This is Our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.